Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Awakening Creativity series. It's me, Veronica, and it's week 12. I'm talking today about recovering the sense of stability. And this chapter is actually quite huge, also in terms of how I connect to it. And I have several discussions that are really alive for me in this chapter. So I'll start sharing about artistic survival. And yeah, that's part of the process that I was definitely experiencing. Um, so surviving the loss of hope, prestige, money, self-trust. And this kind of losses when we have um, when it's the course is not sold, or the book or the movie is not appreciated, or the painting is not um, really valued uh, and criticized instead. So those kind of pains um, can become the soul scars, and we need to be aware of the emotional reaction because we usually don't pay attention to those, and accept this process of grieving, which is a 5-step process, by the way. If you know, it's discussed in emotional intelligence, and those stages that you can go through, and you need to go through to finish grieving. So funny, today I was reading about grieving in another book, Journey, and it says that actual grieving can really be done in 5-6 days if we allow the emotions to go through us. Um, and usually those are, right, the resistance, then the anger, um, then we try to kind of accept. That's the last part. And all of those emotions in between are to be felt. And some, with the way how it's accepted, it, of course, depending on the grieving, on the pain, the level of the emotions can be different. But if we allow, and that's the main message, allow ourselves to feel the emotions um, in our body, take the time and do that, it can go quite fast. So 5 to 6 days. But we usually, what do? We usually don't even allow ourselves to feel the pain in the first place. And that's only the pain, right? If something bad happens. And maybe nowadays with COVID and with so many people losing the jobs, people um, uh, not getting their goals achieved in a way that um, small things that we don't pay attention to, even if they don't, if they seem small. Let's say you couldn't go somewhere um, traveling when you were thinking about it for like a year, right? And it didn't happen because of COVID. Well, of course, you think there are so many people that are struggling. This is not a big deal. It's not a big issue, but maybe it's a pain for you. So you can honor it and just give it time to um, to feel. The second part of artistic survival talks about the critique. And again, I think this is a big, big part of um, discouragement of artists. I watched a movie recently called One Chance about the guy who wanted to become an opera singer. And that's when you can watch the scene with Pavarotti. That's the example of when the judgment of any kind, and there is no truth in the critique, can become very harmful. So those teachers and mentors that artists usually have, um, they're like parents to these young creative souls. So the connection has to be really based on this trust. And when the trust is ruined, it can have the effect as strong as emotional incest from parental violence. Um, when we may be questioning the childhood, if we're doubting the talent, judging the work, or shaming our decision to be artists, etc. I think it comes to those having um, if you have like this small silly kind of childhood painting, and it's not really, and it's criticized from the view of the adult, right? Like being silly, exactly the word that I'm using, right? That's my adult speaking through me, my inner critic. Yeah, so in education and being in education for a long time, this topic is really, really alive for me. I was realizing, um, and from my experience, that encouragement is the best parenting or educational tool for creative work. And I know that nowadays the educational system is changing in many countries, in many universities, schools, appreciating that side of creativity that we are using in anything, even in this kind of scientific subjects, right? So the art of critique usually focuses on division and analysis and how to ruin instead of building. And we can take the moment to connect to our inner truth, our inner God within, while we're hearing the prayer. I don't understand a word, but I hope, or I can feel it's talking about the gratitude. So, yeah, the practice of reviews is also usually focusing on the negatives, whereas the way to build on the creativity is to support and encourage the process. And of course, it's not the goal to transform the scientific world into creative lab. Again, even though the changes in education are now immense, take Mind Valley as an example, right? They're claiming that the level of education they are offering could be done in a very different ways, um, and using a lot of the creativity tools and techniques. So I experienced it myself. The scientific pressure or environment on the creative process is obvious. It's hard to be creative where there are structures uh, valued much more than the creative process itself. So for an artist, academic rigor can be equal to creativity, to disability of this creativity, which doesn't mean that there is no rigor. And I think Julie in her book talks a lot about the art education. Um, and I'm talking about more from the business and management education. So when we have the rigor as an artist, it's a different kind of rigor, and it's based on different principles. I think that's what it's important to remember. And artists and scientists are different. It's like our left and right hemisphere of our brain. So another type of losses that we need to remember is the self traumas that um, we kind of impose on ourselves when um, let's say we don't take a project that comes to us as an opportunity, thinking that it might be um, not our project, or it's out of fear, not wanting to start something new, or not wanting to move to a different place, or building another plans, which of course you still can find a silver lining behind. I think in that situation it's really, and I'm learning to do that, understand if it's coming from the place of ego or if it's coming from the place of fear, or if it's coming from the place of trust and intuition, and heart, and you can like sense, okay, this is where my next step is. So that silver lining, when we talk about something finishing, it's always the beginning of something new. So when it finishes, instead of looking at it as a loss, we can ask, where is it directing my work? So not looking at the past as defining of the future, right? And it's a lot of healing techniques and also wisdom behind focusing on the now, again, discussing in the previous video. So redefining the question, why did this happen to me? Why me? To more like, what is this lost situation trying to show me? Where is it directing my work? And how to? So different types of questions, the power of questions. And transforming that pain into the energy or healing it. There are two different ways that I've learned, and I'm still dancing with both of them. Sometimes the situation I feel comes for me to have this energy that I can use in something in my life, or if I want to go deeper to the root and heal it, and then I don't get this similar kind of situations. So looking with the fresh eyes and noticing the new doors that maybe avoiding before, when looking from the fear or from the pain. So success, both in career and life, I agree with Julia, comes from self-development and choice. And the choice is, what is it that you're focusing on? What is your final goal? What is it that what is it that oh, got distracted. Leading you? What is your ultimate goal? Again, I think it's really helpful here to focus on your inner um, wisdom, your truth, right? Your higher self, and note if it's coming from there or from your ego. So when we don't feel this emotion, the energy can get stuck into the heart, and so it gets really hard to do the next steps. They are becoming harder and harder, and that also happens when you do not want to deal with the situation. When the situation where there is some kind of issue, you keep postponing. So the tip, you can spoil your inner artist when you have some kind of, you realize that there was some kind of loss, with a new album or flowers, or just some loving attention. And the last part is the product versus process, which is also very alive um, issue for me. With paintings versus teaching creativity, awakening, healing, etc. And sometimes we tend to focus on the products more, and which is of course important, is a part of the process, but that can prevent us and to go further. And even when the creativity awakening journey, accomplishing work is important, but the process is even more. When we look at starting something new, right? That's where we not um, where we allow ourselves to do the small steps, and sometimes doing this leap of faith and jumping into the unknown, in awakening the inner creator, and releasing the self-sabotage. So appreciating what we have today, and following and doing the small steps of what we can actually do now. And I have so much more to talk about regarding this topic. So I invite you, if you feel yourself on the same journey, apply for my one-on-one session, and keep updated for the Inner Child Healing with Art course that's coming up soon. Thanks for listening.